Welcome to The Creatives. I am your host, Ashley Mahoney, and we have a fabulous episode about the upcoming production of My Wonderful Birthday Suit at Children's Theater of Charlotte. Well, kind of at Children's Theater of Charlotte. The beauty of the virtual world is that everything is taking place virtually, so it is part of their virtual season and begins on February 22nd. Today we have Gloria Boncluni, the director and playwright. Hello, Gloria.
Hello, how are you? I'm so glad to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. Thank you for joining us. And Rashida Moore as well. Rashida, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Courtney Reasoner, thank you for joining us as well.
Yes, of course.
And Will Burton Edwards, thank you for making time for us today as well.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's dive right on in. And of course, this is a fabulous production, and it is happening in the midst of a pandemic, which is something that if you had told me this time last year that we'd be where we were about a month from now, and then a year from now, I would have said, no way, not possible. You know, what are you talking about? What are these masks you're saying I have to wear everywhere to keep, everyone around me safe? But nevertheless, that is where we are. So tell us all about the process of rehearsing and this virtual world and the live stream performances that are now, the current norm, perhaps even the new norm for the foreseeable future. Well, so Gloria, what is it like adapting a production that is meant to be, seen by a live audience, in a theater with people viewing it on a stage? What is it like for people to then adapt that to this space of a filmed version, if you will?
Well, the exciting thing is that we're recognizing it's theater, that My Wonderful Birthday Suit, brought to life by three fabulous actors on stage, live, in the moment. It's being filmed, but it's live. And so that's the difference really between, I think, saying that it's film as in TV or a movie. We gathered together. What's interesting is I'm looking at Courtney, Will, and Rashida and seeing their faces. And it was really several days before I ever saw their faces. We rehearsed in mask. And so the body and the eyes told a lot. I came down from Chicago. And so I wondered, and have done quite a bit of Zoom theater and a lot of live theater, and wondered what it would be like being in a room where we had some distancing, the really great COVID protocols, and how would it change? And the amazing thing was I felt wonderfully comfortable because of the talent in the room and because of the dedication of Children's Theater of Charlotte and the actors and the crew and the staff to say, children are the most important audiences that we could ever have, and we're going to make this special. We're going to make it's important. And the resources were brought forth. We started just in a regular rehearsal room, rehearsing a read-through, acting through the scenes. I love this cast because they were ready to go with anything. So we improvised, we created the world, and we laughed. We had some very serious conversations because though My Wonderful Birthday Suit is this fabulous party, Ubla-Dee is trying to celebrate her friend Shabab Shabi's birthday, and she's coming from the other side of Moonbeam. She's coming to this side of the rainbow. So there are balloons and there are parties and there's boom pows and cake and presents, lots of presents. Will can tell you about the presents. So there are lots of, there's this fabulous party, but at the same time, there is a core of what's happening today in our country, the question of how do we look at skin color? My Wonderful Birthday Suit is our skin. We were born in it. All of us have a birthday suit. And children as young as 2 and 3 recognize that we're different skin colors. But how they react, how they understand our different colors, our different cultures, is something that what they see and what they hear influences. So some of the conversations were very, very serious. Some of the conversations explored our first understandings, our personal understandings of when we recognize skin color. And so the rehearsal process, though we were in mask, was very intimate, very exciting, a period of discovery. And then we took it all onto this big stage and it was recorded with 4 cameras. And like a regular performance, we had to dress, and then the actors did a full run, and it was taped straight through, and then 2 more additional runs, and that's where the production the production you see, that will be what it is. So that whole idea of knowing that it's theater, live theater, and that we're in the room, in the moment, is what I think made it very special. And I think finding that in a pandemic is, this is my first time really, this is my first group of people. I've been sequestered, I've been writing away, but this is my first group of people that I have been with, and I can't think of a better ensemble to be with.
And it sounds like just the like you said, the act of live theater again. And goodness knows there are so many things that we miss about life before COVID, and live theater is personally, it's high up there on my list. I'm like, there's just something about it would be, just a Tuesday night and you go into one of the theaters in Uptown, and you feel this almost sacred nature about just being there, bearing witness to the art that's before you. And we have that now, kind of, but it's not the same, and that's not to take away from it, but it's different. So for the actors, tell me a bit about what is the process of adapting been like, because of course, like in so many elements of performance, there is this part of drawing off the energy that the audience provides, and the audience is virtual. So how does that work for all of you? Whoever would like to go first.
So while we were mostly performing to a room full of cameras, there was one day that we got to spend with our costume designer, Ketty, and her 2-year-old son named Bobo, which coincidentally is the same name as an awesome bow-laying bird puppet who is also in our play. But Ketty and Bobo were in one corner of the room while we were in the midst of one of our final runs before we went into our dress run. It's sort of a director's run is what it's called. And I don't think any of us had performed for children for about a year. But immediately, we all picked up on his energy, his childlike honesty, his exuberance, and because he was kind of the only child that we got to interact with, all of our future performances were kind of based on the energy that having even that one child in the audience gave us. And so I'm really hoping that the energy that we show in the final product is at least as high and as honest as the energy that Bobo was able to give us without even knowing it on that day.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely strange adjusting, because at first I was kind of relieved. I was like, no audience, like perfect. Like if I mess up, we can just stop the cameras, we can reset. But not having that audience there, I was like, hello, no. Like it reminded me when I was in graduate school, one of my professors is like, okay, what is acting? And we're like, oh God, not this question. We're like, it's, connecting, it's telling a story. And like, we narrowed it down and we're like, it's telling a story. Acting is telling a story. And he's like, you're missing one very important part. And we're like, what is it? And he's like, acting is telling a story to an audience. And he's like, don't forget your audience. And we're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. So when I had this experience and we're telling this story and there is no audience, I was like, what's happening? Like, I definitely missed that energy of the audience being there, getting those reactions, getting those feelings. So I would much rather have given up the luxury of having a camera and knowing that if something did go horribly wrong, that we could stop. I'd give that up for having a live audience any day and getting that energy and feeling that you're telling the story to an audience.
Yeah, I feel like it's I feel like I have talked about this to Will and Rashida a lot. So they'll be like, here's, I've heard Courtney say this 100 times, but like it is really, really different and borderline discouraging, I feel like, to perform the show when there's, no one in the room. Because I feel like with live theater, you're creating and participating in an experience with a room full of people. Like it's this very like community oriented thing. So like if there's weird mistakes that happen on stage, or if something falls down, or if something breaks or something crazy happens, like the people in the room are experiencing that at the same time as you are. So you're fixing it and working through it together, and it, lends itself to the overall experience of like, that's live theater. But, when it's just a camera, and something maybe goes wrong or something breaks or something's, not full energy, it's not that same of like, we didn't create that experience with the people who will be watching it. And the camera's not as gentle or as kind, and it definitely doesn't give any energy. If you're performing to an audience, they're offering you energy and you're receiving that and able to give it back, but the camera doesn't give you energy. So all of it had to come from with us. And like, it was really helpful. Gloria would be like, remember Bobo, when he was there and how excited he got when he saw the puppet, like think about that, or like, Rashida and Will just like, I felt like carrying me through the show, or like us just kind of like having to pull something out of us that normally the audience would be there to offer us, that now all of a sudden was like, oh gosh, this is, super, super different. Even though the medium stays the same, the feel is so, so different.
Exactly. And like you said, it's an empty room. It's this concept in your mind of almost, I feel like being trained of, no, you want a packed house. A packed house means the show is successful. It means people want to come and see it. And right now it's going to be empty, and there's nothing anyone can do about it because that's what's necessary right now. But at the same time thinking, this is everything that's been ingrained in us to be like, this is not how it's supposed to be. This isn't how things are supposed to work. But yeah, that can be said for a lot of what we experienced in 2020 and a lot of what we're still experiencing in 2021. So with this particular story, there's also the layer of course, navigating the pandemic and how to continue to provide, art, like you said, Gloria, to children who are this pure heart, pure joy, and like you referenced with Bobo, just this the childlike enthusiasm. There's a reason that is always referenced in this space of just pure joy, but also knowing that, like you said, the subject matter is of course dealing with our birthday suits. And we all, like you said, Gloria, everyone has one, but the current place we are as a nation is something where it's being addressed a lot. So what were those conversations like as a cast, and what do you want your young audiences, but also, their family members or their parents or friends or whomever is watching the show, what do you want them to take away from it? And whomever would like to answer that first.
Well, I'll say the conversation actually started with a book called The Skin We Live In by Michael Tyler. And this was, the first production was in Chicago and at Children's Theater of Chicago. And the Jackie the artistic director called and said, I have this wonderful book I'd like you to take a look at. And she was very excited about it. And it was a beautiful book that was pictures and poetry about skin, about how it's wonderful, it's useful, and all the different shades. And so that sparked a conversation. Rather than doing an adaptation, because it's hard, to adapt a poem, there's not conflict in character, so all of those things have to be created. But it sparked a conversation about how we see skin color at a time when the country was not being kind about skin color in so many ways. And I'm so excited that Children's Theater of Charlotte brought it to Charlotte now, because when we think about what happened, was the riots in the streets, the marches for Black Lives Matter, all based on how we view race in this country, systemic racism. Where does that come from? Children aren't born racist. Someone says something happens. And so the book sparked a conversation, and I began to explore, but every cast, this is the second cast that's done it. And that's sometimes one of the sweetest casts, because you kind of know the show to a certain degree, and then you explore other parts of the story. And one of the questions that I always ask is what do you remember about your first experience recognizing skin color? And I'll let the rest of the cast share, but the stories that they shared just made the play richer, and the moment when we had to get to she's brown, and Ublada's upsetness about recognizing that someone else was another skin color. The conversations underneath was what made the story important, the story truthful.
Oh, sorry, Will, it looked like you were going to say something. Go ahead. Oh. No worries. When you look at this, and this is, of course, something that is very present in society as things continue to progress forward, and it's something we spoke about during the previous episode of the creatives featuring the casting creative of Grimm's, and the way that they wanted to approach the show in the wake of the deaths of course, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, the fact that these were events that took place outside of Charlotte, but their effect is, of course, felt here in Charlotte. There were protests for many weeks in Uptown, in all throughout the neighborhoods of Charlotte, demanding that there be, accountability and kind of a recognition of the wrongdoing. But when you look at that in the context of this particular production and the conversations and the way that it's presented to children, as the actors of this show, how do you go about that? And what are some of the conversations among yourselves as you decide how you want to present this show?
So I think, Ublada's character is the one, as Gloria mentioned, that really struggles with the fact that Shabab character has brown skin. And so it took several different approaches to figure out what kind of character we needed Ublada to be to tell the story as accurately as possible, and in a way that a lot of people could relate to, whether they wanted to or not. And so Ublada's character is not somebody who is, you know, yelling and screaming and holding certain flags in the streets, you know. But at the same time, he's also not a character who is apologizing or is recognizing the danger that the kinds of words that he is using can pose to somebody else. He's somewhere in the middle where he doesn't know quite enough to do the right thing, but hasn't been taught that the wrong thing is wrong yet either. And so that, I know, is a place that I spent a lot of time too growing up. I am from Indiana. And since Indiana is in the north, we often lay a lot of blame on, you know, on southern states for being the quote unquote racist states, even though Indiana obviously has its own conversations about race to be had as well. We were the northern seat of the KKK for years and years and years in Elwood, Indiana. A fact that I did not learn in school, a fact that I had to learn later on. And so this play, you know, not only informed hopefully other people's perceptions of skin color and how to have those conversations constructively, but it really informed my own perception of not just of skin color, but my perception of skin color, and how much that has been warped over the years, and how much work I have done to get sort of on the right side of history, and how much more work I and all the people who look like me can really do to have those conversations and get started moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, you know, there are a lot of subject materials out there, like books, plays, TV shows that address race, but it's often like, this person's racist and he's bad. These people aren't racist, so they're good. Understand? But they never address all those gray areas, especially kids at this age are experiencing. So I liked the fact that it was more of this ignorance that we were dealing with Ublada. And, you know, he had to be likable, because if he wasn't likable, then we weren't going to care if he made a change or not in the play. So I'm glad that Gloria wrote him that way. And I'm also glad that Gloria pinpointed some other things that people might not realize that they're being racist about, especially little kids at this age. Like Ubladi, Courtney's character, says something like, oh, well, I just don't see color. Like, how many times have we heard that? And just making sure people know, like, well, that's not a good thing. Like, you can see it and you can celebrate it, and that's okay. And just her being like, oh, I just thought it would be easier, like, not to mention that you're brown. Or the play goes on to talk about forgiveness and apologizing. And it was a struggle, because as a 40-something Black woman, I didn't want to forgive. I'm like, I'm sick of forgiving. Like, we're always expected just to be like, that's okay, you'll do better next time. So we had this kind of discovery within the rehearsal process of like, how can we shape the forgiveness moment to where it's more of like, yes, I forgive you, but also I'm only going to forgive you if you are going to make some active changes, which Will's character decides to do. So I just really enjoy this play because it's addressing a lot of those same issues, but it's doing it just enough in that different way that it's hitting a lot of dark places that, and by dark places, I mean just like things that other subject materials don't explore enough. If that makes sense.
Yes, and like you said, there's, especially when it comes to women of color, especially Black women, it's like there's this expectation of forgiveness and fixing everything. And like you said, it's like, enough is enough. Like that's not the burden for Black women to bear. Like enough already. And seeing that, you know, there can be these steps for accountability and change, and especially helping children at such a young age. It's like, can you right the ship before it's gone so far out of the way? It's like, okay, I got to turn everything around now and navigate and so forth, but being able to really help this young audience. Like we said, that it may not just be children watching. Some children kids are very tech savvy these days. They could be the ones, figuring everything out and turning on the show. But there are kids who are gonna be like, no, someone else has to do this for me. And maybe that someone is watching it with them, and maybe they're able to go on this journey as well and see the story and the process. But sorry, Gloria. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the exciting parts of the show, I think, is there is a thinking tree. In this side of the rainbow, in Ubladi's home, there is a huge, and it's just worth coming to see it, just to see the tree. Is this huge tree that grows in her great room, and it's 9 feet? You have to climb 9 feet before you can sit in it, and then it's taller. So it's a thinking tree, and it doesn't think for you. It has this wonderful sound that the sound designer created. And when you go into the thinking tree, it helps you process through moments. And I think, particularly at this time in our country, we all need a thinking tree. We need to think soulfully, deeply, and the thinking tree, and just the celebration. I love all of the characters and all of the lines. One of the things that I really love in the show is Rashida has this rhapsody about skin color, about how wonderful it is being brown. She says, you don't see this part of me? Well, and she talks about many things about her life. And one of the great things is that she's brown. And she does 3 cartwheels in a row, which is the thing that amazes me.
Hold on.
But that whole idea of yes, come for the cartwheels.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of fun in the show. There's a great deal of fun in the show. But there is that significant underpinning of thinking through race, thinking through friendship. Best friends. What is a best friend? I think Courtney. What is that line about Courtney? With the S.
Friends with an S is the best friends.
Yes, because there is a conflict there of wait a minute, I thought I was your best friend. Now you're saying she's a best friend. How can you have 2 best friends? And so all of that fed into the concern about skin color, the concern about, are you still my friend? Questioning friendship. So I agree with Rashida. I love the way the actors, Courtney, who is, I guess we have to say it on, because there's no camera, is white, and Rashida is African-American. And so they have this wonderful moment when they compare skin colors, and they both love the skin they're in. And they talk about why it's so wonderful, that, it's waterproof, like rubber duckies, quack, quack. It's, it goes with all your outfits. It's really great stuff, this skin. And recognizing it, when we're little, and celebrating it is really what My Wonderful Birthday Suit is all about. And hopefully adults will catch it too, and children will teach their adults, bring their adults and teach their adults, if they're not quite clear, how to celebrate skin color, all skin colors.
As things continue to progress, I know that everyone looks forward to seeing this 3rd production in the Children's Theater of Charlotte virtual season, and they can do so starting February 22nd, which is exactly 20 days away. Now, whenever you're listening to this, it may no longer be February 2nd, but today, when we're recording, it's February 2nd. So in 20 days will be the premiere, and that will run through March 31st. So make sure you head over to the Children's Theater of Charlotte website, check everything out there. Be sure to look for this story in print in our edition every Thursday on the not this coming Thursday, but the following Thursday, the 11th. So right in that window of just before the premiere itself. And again, thank you all so much for joining me today on this fabulous episode of The Creatives. Make sure you head over to thecharlottepost.com for more fabulous arts and entertainment content and tons of stuff that's going on here in Charlotte. I mean, there's a pandemic going on and we're all inside, but it's still very, very busy. So again, thank you all so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.